All right, this is Matthew Freedman of the Action Network here with Chris Raybon. Chris, breaking news: Jacksonville Jaguars have traded quarterback Nick Foles to the Chicago Bears for a compensatory fourth-round pick. What are your immediate fantasy thoughts on what this means for Foles in Chicago, Gardner Minshew, who will now be the starter in Jacksonville, and their respective wide receivers?
Well, it's interesting because this whole John DeFilippo, who's now a member of the coaching staff for the Bears, this whole marriage between him and Foles was supposed to work out last year. Didn't really work out in Jacksonville, so it's interesting that they're kind of going back to the well here. This just seems like I think there's some upside here. There's a lot of volatility because I think on one hand we've seen Foles have this crazy high ceiling. We've seen a guy like Ryan Tannehill, who we've all probably written off, come back and have a really high ceiling with the Titans. But at the same time, this could also go bad, like Nick Foles on the Jaguars last year. We really haven't seen Foles play to his potential outside of that system in Philadelphia, and with the Eagles. So it's really tough for me to say this is going to change anything. But at the same time, the Bears themselves have had this weird up and down where, you were right about this. Like, I was way too high on the Bears coming into 2019. I thought Mitch Trubisky would run a lot more. Nick Foles does not run at all. So I suppose that this is good news for Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller, a couple more targets here and there probably for them. Foles is the guy who can execute the offense. I think he's a professional guy. So that's about the best I can say. But what do you think of this? Like, just this whole, like, Foles, he's like really good sometimes. He's like nothing some other times. I still have questions essentially.
I think this is a little bit of an upgrade, as you mentioned, for Allen Robinson. I think Foles is the better deep ball passer. It's hard to say that Foles is more consistent than Mitchell Trubisky, but I think he might be. At least I think he will consistently give Allen Robinson opportunities, which is the important thing there. And for the Jaguars, Minshew was a low-end QB1, high-end QB2 for the first 7 or 8 games of the season before Nick Foles returned. So I will be curious to see what he does, how he progresses in his second year as a starter there, or his first year as a full-time starter. And also, they have a new offensive coordinator in Jacksonville, in Jay Gruden, who at least early in his coaching career had success with young Andy Dalton with the Bengals. So maybe he can help Gardner Minshew develop as a quarterback. And I'm still pretty optimistic on DJ Shark and D.D. Westbrook as receivers with upside in Jacksonville. But it's still hard to know how consistent they will be on a game-to-game basis. So I'm still viewing them more as best ball and DFS tournament plays as opposed to guys that you can count on a weekly basis. But let me know what you think about Shark and Westbrook.
I was surprised you said like you grouped them together. Like, I think Shark is in that wide receiver 2 conversation. I think we saw a major connection with Gardner Minshew and DJ Chark last season. We saw a major step forward for Chark, and I think just watching him play turned into one of the better receivers in the league. So I think this is great news for DJ Chark. D.D. Westbrook is a guy who I think we were both high on from a talent perspective. I think he might be one of those guys who, just because of the style of his play and the routes he'll probably run, I think that he will be less of an upside guy. I think the best case for Westbrook is like 4 catches per game with a couple of explosive big plays to kind of pad the ceiling. But I do think Jay Gruden is probably good for this offense to kind of not fall back from coaching. And I think he struggled with that a little bit, but I think he is a good offensive coordinator. So I really like this move for DJ Chark. I think DJ Chark has, he'll have a lot of weeks where I think he'll post top 12 numbers with Gardner Minshew. This defense is not what it once was in Jacksonville, which is also a positive because we kind of think of the Jaguars as this team that they're going to play good defense and have like an offense. That could change a little bit. So I think this is really good news for DJ Chark. D.D. Westbrook is in that kind of fringe wide receiver 3-4 territory for me. But I really do like Chark. I think he continues to thrive and continues to be that number one receiver in Jacksonville and push for about 25% of the targets.
Yeah, so let me clarify. I don't view them as being in the same tier, but Shark, like Westbrook, is a big play receiver. It's just he's more consistent of a big play receiver. And so, for me, the question is, does Shark kind of go from the guy who has some big games and then some games where he's more in the wide receiver 3 range to a guy who is more consistent on a week in and week out basis? But as you say, Shark has a ton of ability, and if he can continue to develop and have a stronger connection with Minshew, he has a ton of upside and could be a wide receiver 1 this season. All right, I think that is going to do it. Again, Nick Foles has been traded to the Bears for a 4th-round pick. He is now the starter, presumably, in Chicago. And Gardner Minshew, the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, thanks, Raybon.